And good morning, everybody. It's Dan Latto speaking. Hope you're well. Welcome to Property Cashflow Show, part of the Daniel Latto podcast. Anyway, hope you're well. Is it a Monday today? I think it is a Monday. Hope you're well this fine Monday. I'm flying over to the UK tomorrow. Got the Brighton SEO conference, which I've booked, and I'm going to go stay there. So if you're in Brighton, you want to meet up for a coffee or a pint, let me know. But in today's session, I want to talk about property. We're going to hopefully go live a lot more on Mondays and talk about property, and I think that's probably going to be worth it and probably going to help some people. Anyway, let's move on to the first item. Is buy-to-let still worth it? So I've been in buy-to-let now for... it's at least 25 years, maybe 26 years, something like that. And, we bought our first house, 40 grand, they were the days. I moved into it. It was a little 3-bed house in Hyde Park in Leeds. I moved into that, moved my 3 mates into it. I converted the lounge into a bedroom. I lived in that one. And then the other 3 bedrooms I rented out. Awesome times, happy times, gate crashing, loads of parties in Studentville in Leeds. I was only 26. Wonderful times. And then we quickly bought a lot more property, realised that this is where the money was going to be, and also kind of didn't really like pensions and thought that pensions weren't for me. Now, what's really interesting now is that 26 years on, 27 years, I don't know how long it is, a quarter of a century later, that sounds a bit more impressive, doesn't it? Quarter of a century later, would I do the same again? And the answer is no, I wouldn't do the same again. I would do it differently. And obviously, benefit of hindsight is wonderful. I would have put more money into a pension for sure. I remember working at Dell, and you got shares, and or a pension. I think it was shares when you worked there, and every 1% you put in, they would cover that with another 1%, all the way up to 6%. So you'd end up with 12% of your salary. And I sold those. Stupid. Why did I sell those? Why did I not just put them into an ISA? I would have them now paying dividends. Would I put everything into property and everything into buy-to-let? And no, I wouldn't. I absolutely wouldn't. I'd be moving stuff around because why have all your eggs in one basket? But having said all that, buy-to-let has been incredibly good for us. When we were going through some incredibly tough times 12 years ago, family court, just some horrific times through the family court process, I just didn't work. We just relied on the income coming in from buy-to-let, and thank God, quite frankly. In fact, it's longer than 12 years, probably 14 years, 60, I don't know, 14 years. So buy-to-let has been incredibly good for us. And don't get me wrong, I'm very happy with what we've done, but I just would change a few things, and I would be buying more stocks and shares, put them into into an ISA, not a cash ISA, into an ISA, and living off some of those dividends. I also would have paid down debt a lot quicker. I would have paid off credit cards a lot quicker, loans a lot quicker, and so on and so forth. And then obviously, the big one is Section 24. Nobody knew that Section 24 was coming, and it's what we class as a retroactive tax. So the decisions I made back in 1996 and 97, 98, 99 and year 2000, those decisions that I made, 22 years ago now, are affecting my taxation level today, right? And it's ridiculous. And so we should have paid those down a lot more. We probably would have owned less property, but we would have had more property paid off. That's really what we should have done. And obviously, if I was going into buy-to-let now, and I don't think, I can't see us buying more property. In fact, we're offloading some to pay down debt. So even if interest rates go to 50%, we're fine. That's really where we want to be. And so actually we're paying down debt. Now, it might be that our cash flow monthly takes us to a point where we're like, okay, let's just buy some more for cash. Maybe, right? We don't know what the future's going to hold. Times are hard for everybody right now. Like, our rent's going to go up 50% in the next 10 or 15 years. I reckon we're not far off it, to be honest with you. We've still got a huge amount of inflation to come. So the question of, is buy-to-let still worth it? It's like, it depends where we are in the cycle. If you'd have asked me 20 years ago, absolutely. If you ask me now, if you're just getting into buy-to-let, I'd say probably not worth it today. But you don't get into buy-to-let in order to secure your today, cash flow. You get into buy-to-let to secure your future cash flow, like in 10, 15, 20 years. And that's what we've done. 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, we got into buy-to-let to secure today's cash flow. Excuse me. And that's what we've done largely. We've had hiccups along the way like everybody else. Interest rate rises, doubling over the last couple of months has obviously hit us as well as everybody else. But our gearing isn't so bad anymore that it makes everything undoable. In fact, we're okay, thankfully. Now, we're not on standard so we are on standard variable. We're not on fixed rates or anything like that, so we got hit with it. But obviously our rents then have increased to match that. So we're still in the same situation that we were in a couple of years ago, effectively. So our cash flow is fine. So is buy-to-let still worth it? I have to say that if you're going to go into buy-to-let, then yes, it's worth it, but with a caveat, okay? And the caveat is this. Like, I live in Spain, so I'm 1,000 miles away. If I lived in Leeds right now, I would probably be converting some of my buy-to-lets over to luxury Airbnb type accommodation. That's probably what I would do, because there's a lot of potential cash flow. Even though there's a lot of competition in Airbnb type stuff, there's a lot of potential cash flow there. But I don't. I live in Spain. It's just yet another thing to manage. It's not for me, right? So you've got to be really clear on what your strategy is going to be. Is it HMOs with all the legislation that's coming through? Is it 2-bed back-to-back houses with all the licensing that's now come through? And all the, your banisters not quite the right height, so you have to move it up an inch or move it down an inch, which is stupid. It's not the right height for who? I'm 5'7". What if someone's 6'5"? What if someone's 4'11"? Like who says what the right height is? So there's all these rules and regulations coming in. I think for sure, when I was buying a lot more property going back 10 years, my level of conscious awareness in purchasing property was almost nil, right? I would just see a house, I'd be like, yeah, we'll buy it. I'd go look at another house. I'd walk in, look around, man about town, thinking it was all that, and we'd just buy it. And now I would be a lot more cerebral in how we actually think about what other houses we're going to buy, what are we going to do with them once we've bought them. Now, we've already got a lot of property anyway, but like I say, I don't want to be doing HMOs. I don't really want to be doing Airbnb style serviced accommodation. Going back 12 years ago when we owned the letting agency, if you type serviced accommodation leads or short-term lets leads, we owned the first page of Google. My letting agency was up at the top for several pages, and we had several websites as well, which ranked very highly. So we really owned that page. We did very well, but I don't live in the UK anymore. So the caveat is, yes, I would still go into buy-to-let, but you have to be more cerebral, more thought-aware, consciously aware about what are you going to do. What's the process? But I wouldn't have quit my job as early as I did. I was on 100 grand at Dell. This is what, I'm 50 now and I left when I was 30. This is 20 years ago for a 30-year-old to be earning 100 grand a year. And bear in mind, right, I was too young for that job. Like, the stress levels, my peers were my age now. They were 45 and 50. The stress level was too high. If I got that job again, I'd be fucking amazing at that job. It would be so much better. But I wasn't. I was just a young kid, thought I knew it all. I still think I know it all. And it was a lot harder. And so I left that job. But 100 grand a year, what was I thinking? I'm like, it's not enough. I can do better on my own, It's crazy the confidence that you have in your 30s, or just turning 30. The naivety that you have. So I would have stayed in that job a lot longer. I would have also moved a lot more money over to stocks and shares and ISAs and pension funds. I would also not have spent as much money going out with the lads every week, 3 or 4 nights a week. I definitely wouldn't have done that. So this is the maturity coming out, folks, at 50. It's taken a long time for me to get to that point. But if you're about to go into buy-to-let, is it going to be worth it for you? Yes, it is, but you have to be cerebral about it. And if you do that and you don't get into too much debt and you handle the repayments of the mortgage properly and you're consciously aware and you run stress testing up to 10% interest rates, like if you're checking that and it still works, you're going to be in a good position. Put down a bigger deposit or less to the banks. You know, if your mortgages are 5%, people are putting money into stocks and shares into Amazon and getting a 3% dividend. Like, you know, McDonald's 2% dividend. And that's what people are living off. Paying down mortgage debt at 5% is a really good idea right now, because you're saving 5%. You can't even offset the damn thing if it's in your own name. Obviously, you can if it's in a business. But anyway, yes is the answer, but there's a few caveats that I've talked about. Okay, so let's talk about EPC targets, which has been delayed until 2028. So an EPC is an energy performance certificate, and I think they were supposed to be coming in 2025. And, you know, when I look at my portfolio, we've already done some work on some of the portfolio, but some of those properties are never going to get to the stage where they're going to be types, you know, level C. Like, there's going to be, you know, it's supposed to be a limit of spending up to £10,000 per property on that. Well, if you've got 20 or 30 properties, that's ridiculous. Where are you going to find £300,000 from to bring those up to standard? And this is the thing that really annoys me is, look, I understand that tenants should have energy efficient homes. 100% agree with that. But I also think that homeowners should have energy efficient homes. Why is it that tenants have a more efficient home than someone who's bought their own home are allowed to? Right? Like, if a law comes in that landlords have to do it, the same law should come in that homeowners have to do it. And it's this divergence between the two. Then let's get on to council houses. Like, they could be burning tyres in a council house with mould. The council don't do anything. If we have a slight issue in one of our properties and the council gets involved, you know, we get an enforcement notice that we have to fix it. And if not, they'll fix it. And then we'll charge top dollar. And then it'll be a terrible fix because the workmen are dreadful. You know, I don't understand why it's a different tier, different level, different tiers, not tiers, but different tiered. If you're a landlord, if you're a homeowner, or if you're a council, why is it not just equal for everybody? And I just don't get that. Imagine if we made it equal for everybody. Imagine how much more energy efficient the United Kingdom would be if everybody had to abide by the same rules, and we don't have to abide by the same rules. So I don't really get that. But EPC's targets are now being delayed until 2028. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be delayed even further, and getting them up to a C level, I reckon that's probably going to be dropped down to a D. Like, I have no idea. That's a complete and utter guess. But looking at my portfolio and the amount of money that you'd need to spend to get every single one of those properties up to a level C, we're not doing that. We'll just sell them. Would we buy more? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe we just pull the money out and stick it into an ISA or a pension or whatever, right? But the problem that you're going to have here, and the problem that's already started, is that landlords are already leaving the marketplace because Section 24 taxation is killing people right now. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Section 21, which we're going to talk about next, is an issue for people. The removal of stamp duty, or the increase in stamp duty, the removal of 10% wear and tear. All of these things are having a negative impact on the availability of a supply of rental property right now, and we're seeing rents shooting up. They're saying 10%. It's not 10%. We had a house come empty, a single flat come empty, one bed. It was 675, and we just rented it for 795. I don't know what the maths is on that, but it's over 20%. That's ridiculous. But that's the reality, right? That's where we are. So, excuse me. So, the EPC targets are going to have yet another negative effect on yet another, you know, it's just yet another issue on top of all the other issues that buy-to-let landlords are actually having. So is it going to work? Are they going to bring it in? Who on earth knows? But anyway, look, the news is that it's been delayed for a number of years until 2028. And let's talk about no-fault evictions, Section 21s. So there's this idea, and you look on Twitter and you look in The Guardian, no-fault evictions, how bad they are. You know, there's no security of tenancy for tenants. And I'm like, of course there is. Like, I can only talk about me because I'm a buy-to-let landlord, and I don't know what other landlords do, right? But if I have a nice tenant who's not a knobhead, right, who looks after the house, who pays the rent, causes no hassle. If they have repairs, of course we'll fix repairs, that's not a problem. Not ridiculous repairs like my light bulb doesn't work. Change the light bulb? Like, come on, you know? Like, if you get nice tenants, like, how long has tenants been in? 15 years? In fact, they haven't, because we just sold that house. but they were in for 15 years. We don't get rid of tenants who are nice tenants, who pay on time, who are just nice. We don't want to do that. We want tenants to feel secure and have a family and know that the family's secure and put them into local schools and knowing that they're not going to be evicted and all that stuff, right? Then the government comes along and thinks, oh, let's put interest rates up. I know, let's increase Section 24. Now a lot of landlords are having to sell up. So those tenants are getting hit with Section 21s because they're not late on rent. They're not behind on rents. They're selling the property. So what do? Do you issue a Section 8, which takes longer and is down to the judge's discretion as to whether they're going to evict that tenant, or do you just issue a Section 21? Now, you might say, well, it's not the tenant's fault, and you're absolutely right, I agree. It's not the landlord's fault either that they're now out of pocket because of Section 24, which is being backdated all the way to a decision made back in 1996 when they bought the first house, i.e. me. It's ridiculous. That Section 24 taxation should have been brought in for any properties bought since then. But no, they didn't do that. And in not doing that, they've rocked the marketplace, which then there's a knock-on effect, which means landlords are having to leave, which means there's a knock-on effect, which means there's an increase, a massive increase on the level of Section 21s that are being issued right now because landlords are leaving in their droves. 50,000 landlords have left the marketplace since 2019. Is that 12,500 a year? That's a significant amount of landlords. And that's landlords, not properties. Assuming that's just one property per landlord, which we know is not the case, 2 or 3 might be. You're talking 100 to 150,000, if you averaged it out, properties being taken off the market for tenants. And then we wonder why rents are being squeezed. But going back to Section 21s, the other reason why we use a Section 21 is that if we do get a tenant who's being a bit of a knob, antisocial behaviour, late payment on rent, no rent, often it's easier to issue a Section 21 than it is a Section 8 because of the discretionary powers that a Section 8 gives the judge, who might go, no, I'm not going to evict them. So that's why we use a Section 21. Now, obviously, the Section 21 is slowly, I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's been eradicated. And all that will happen is that we'll just move over to Section 8. So it's not that it's not a no-fault eviction. It's just an easier eviction than a Section 8. If we've got a tenant who's late on their rent constantly and it's driving us mad, and by the way, I can tell you after 25 years experience that when you have a tenant that pays rent a few days late one month and a week later the next month and a few days late the following month, and that, right, is a signpost that tenant is going to default on their rent. Usually, I'd say 75%, certainly more than 50% of the time, if you've got a tenant that's struggling to pay their rent on time, that is a really big red flag that they're probably not going to pay their rent at all at some point in the next 6 months. We know this, right? This is what we call experience. And so we issue a Section 21. And we obviously talk to them first. You need to pay your rent. What's going on? Can we help? Is it a temporary thing? You've lost your job. Okay. Are you getting another job? What's going on? And so on and so forth, right? We don't want to evict tenants, especially tenants who've been with us for a long, long time. We've built a trust and built a relationship up with. We want to actually help these people. But we can only do so much. We can only go so far. Our primary concern is the cash flow to pay our mortgages, right? And to pay service charges and taxation and all the things that a buy-to-let landlord has to actually pay. We don't want to be out of pocket and having to find the money from elsewhere in order to pay that stuff. Because if we do, it's rocking this house of cards that all these other tenants are relying on us to provide them with good quality homes. If we got 3 or 4 tenants not paying, we can't do that. We can't carry out the repairs because where's the funds going to come from? So we have to manage that because we're responsible for our other tenants as well as just the tenant that isn't able to pay. So we issue a Section 21. It's not that it's not a no-fault eviction. It's that there is a problem when we use a Section 21 because that's the easiest method of evicting a tenant that we feel is going to be a problem. And we don't want that because it can have this knock-on effect to all our other tenants. And our job is as a responsible landlord, is to look after all our tenants. That's it. That's the bottom line. Okay. So let's talk about sourcing, property sourcing. Can you still source property deals right now? 100%. Do you think there's people struggling with their mortgages right now? Do you think the interest rates doubling? Do you think that might have an adverse effect and people will be really struggling with that right now? Absolutely. Do you think that people bought a mortgage on a fix, 2%, fixed for 2 years or 3 years, do you think they might be coming off those fixes now, those 2 or 3 year fixes, and that 2% goes to 5% or whatever that is, 2.5 times their mortgage, or even just a doubling of their mortgage? Of course. Do you think because the issues of food going up, gas prices going up, petrol prices going up, all the energy prices going up, everything's going up, right? Do you think that's going to have a negative impact on those people that are buying the 2-bed, low-end, back-to-back houses who saved for 20 years to buy the house? Now they've got it, now the mortgage has gone up. Do you think some of us have also lost the job and are struggling? Now they're going to have to sell the home quickly? Of course. In fact, like, property sourcing is about cycles, okay? And the cycle that we are in right now means that landlords are struggling and they want to offload the property. Or you know what? They're just tired of being a landlord. They're fed up of having to deal with it. Or homeowners who've now got a doubled mortgage, they're also struggling with cash flow and don't know what to do, don't know how to get out of it. Do you think also because of all the stress of the money, there's an increase in divorces right now? Absolutely. And do you think some of those people want to offload the property and just get rid of it as fast as possible? Do you think some of those people also don't want to sell the property but want to just get through this storm and move back into it in 5 or 10 years? Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's rent to rent right there. So you've got all these opportunities right now in the property sourcing world. You just need to ramp up what you're doing, because if you're not ramping up your marketing, other people are ramping up their marketing and they're going to take your deals. The deals are out there. And you know what? It doesn't matter where you are in this cycle, the deals have been there all along. Is there less deals at certain parts in the cycle? This is a circle, by the way, that's a cycle. Is there less properties available at certain points in that cycle? Absolutely. But are we in a cycle right now where there's more properties going on the marketplace because landlords and homeowners can't afford them and they're just desperate to sell? Yes. And have the number of transactions dropped? Yes. Has property deals fallen through? I can tell you from experience, yes. We've had 3 fall through for all sorts of various reasons. So is this an increasing thing that's happening right now? Are property deals falling through? Yes. Is there an opportunity for you to step in and, what's the word, fill the chain? You know, if the chain's fallen through, to just, what's the word? Not branch chain, I don't know what the word is. To plug the gap in the chain that's just broken? Absolutely. Will they knock 5, 10, 15, 20 grand off that house? Completely. So there's opportunity out there right now to source property deals. Don't ever think that this opportunity is done, because this you could be in a, you know, in a world where, do you remember going back 20 years where you just buy a house and it would go up in value and you'd sell it 6 months later for 10 grand? Like, do you think people are desperate to sell in those times? Yeah. Like, do you think people are getting divorced or it's been passed on and they just don't want it and just want to get rid of it? Absolutely. So it doesn't matter where we are in this cycle. It's just that sometimes the cycle is easy and sometimes the cycle is more difficult. But you can still source property deals. That's a given right now. And in any marketplace, it's just easier sometimes than it is in others. Anyway, look, I hope you find that a lot useful. We'll catch up with you in the next one on Wednesday, possibly. I'm in Brighton at the SEO conference, so we'll try and go live then. All right, hope you have a good week, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care.